some years ago. And in our compound then, every time our husband beats her every single day, the family will come and pack her things out. She will by herself take her things back there.
I think she's destined to die.
She will carry her things back. As in, this one happened before my eyes many times. The family will come and say, no, we are going. She will come back with the bandage, everything with blood. I say, I'm going, that's my husband. That's my husband. I say,
A poison food does not taste bitter. Deep, right? Yeah, I'm sure when you hear about this, the first thing that comes to your mind is when person won't poison me. Obviously, the food needs to taste good so that you can ask for more and more. And it just makes you feel like, at least before the person kills me, let me enjoy a good food. Now, this quote means that sometimes things look so good and appealing, but it might just be dangerous to you. It might be dangerous to your health. It might be dangerous to everything around you. But then because they look appealing, you might overlook the side effect. On today's episode, last week we talked about domestic violence, and I said that we'll be bringing in guests that will be talking about domestic violence. So on today's episode, we'll be asking our guest how this statement I just said now, a poisoned food does not taste bitter, how does it align with domestic violence? How does this word match in the context of domestic violence? Vigilance, welcome to another episode on Vigilant Podcast. It's all about dishing out educative content, entertaining content. We're all about you. And I'll be talking on domestic violence on today's episode too. Last week, we talked about domestic violence on its own, but this week we'll be talking about dealing with domestic violence. It's one thing to talk about an issue, to talk about a problem, but it's another to talk about the solution to the problem. My name is Tiolaiton Babatunde, and I have with me in the studio the Vibe Queen, Grace. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right. Like we discussed last week, we talked about domestic violence. We talked about people in domestic that are going through this, people that are getting abused day in, day out. We talked about the effect on the people in the community, even their kids. We talked about that. And I want to ask, last week you said that domestic violence for you also means that when you're aggressive, when you're passing your aggression on me, it means you're abusing me.
You're being toxic.
Yeah, you're being toxic. I want to ask if that perspective changed during the course of the week.
Oh, it has not changed. It still remains the same.
So you still believe that once a man yell at you is abusing you, because domestic violence is not all about eating someone or shoving them. Yeah, it could be verbal abuse. Yeah, I also agree with you. Yeah, it's a good thing that you didn't change your perspective.
It's still what it is.
It's still what it is. And like I said last week, we're bringing in people to discuss this. And on today's episode, we are here with a compare, the man and his mic.
Your Excellency, sir.
Yes, sir. Well, he's an economic analyst.
The economic guru.
Yes, yeah. But then we brought him on this program today to talk to us in a man perspective. Like I said last week, that most times men get abused.
It's 50-50.
Yeah, it's 50-50. But then because of their ego, because of stereotype, because of societal norms, they don't talk about it.
They cry behind the door.
Yeah. So like I brought him in today in order to, give us insight into all of these things. Good afternoon, Pelumi.
good afternoon. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, look at that. Look at that. That manly voice. Yeah, we are also happy to have you here today. And then we also have another wonderful guest with us today. Her name is Oladimeji Titilayo. She holds an NGO. She's a woman rights and gender empowerment advocate. She's also an author and a publisher. Titi Petra publisher. So when I tell you that we don't just bring in anyhow people,
and I like the fact that it's balanced, the gender balancing.
Yeah.
When the man is trying to say, "Oh, you abused me," there's a counterpart that
is that is saying something.
What are you saying? So that is where we are diving into
today. Yeah. So like I said earlier, we're bringing in a wonderful person, Miss Oladimeji Titilayo. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining.
Good afternoon, guys, and thank you for having me.
You're
My pleasure.
Yes, ma. So like I said earlier when I started, I said a poison food does not taste bitter. And we're going to talk about it in the context of domestic violence. Palumi, can you tell us what you feel about that quote?
Well, I'm glad to be on the show again today. The first thing that comes to mind when you hear a poison food never tastes bitter is that the people who eventually become violent, if you check the cases in court, the people who even tend to be accused of being violent in their families are people who don't look like it. They look sweet. They look all posh. They look. You look at the man. You can't imagine that he can even slap his wife.
Yeah.
You look at the woman again, and you see a very slim woman, but when she's at home, she's fat. So when my idea of a poison food never tastes bitter is that ask before you act, listen before you enlist. You want to pay attention beyond. So for me, again, when you get people, so on the part of others is before you get into it, you pay attention to the things that are happening, because somebody who will slap you today must have tapped you yesterday.
Yeah.
Somebody who will kick you tomorrow would have kicked you somehow today.
You would have been that red line.
You would have seen
Signal.
it. But so we see the red signal and say, is it really red? I think it's blue, right? It's my eyes. I put it on
Start giving
a
excuses.
Blu-ray glass, just to change the color. You're giving us, because when people are in love, they don't listen anymore. I know that other guests can attest. They don't really listen anymore. So from the get-go, before you get into it, I give an example. A guy who drives you to a restaurant, opens the door for you, and then asks you to come down from it, and then serves you like a queen. And as you're about to enter into a restaurant, slaps the guy by the door. Can't you open the door? Won't you open the door for us? That guy will beat you up.
Be ready.
He will beat you. He says he likes me. He will so like you with slap, right? So the idea is ask before you act. Listen before you enlist. They are always saying, be discerning. Something else is, you don't want to allow your emotion override your judgment. As humans, we ride more on our emotion than our logic. It takes a lot of consciousness to say, I am going to say no to being slapped anymore. So this is a counsel for, and before we even get deep into the conversation of asking about what can you do when you are there, this is before you even get into it. It's easier when you read, because if somebody wants to poison you, it will not taste bitter.
Yeah.
It will be sweet, so that you can get into that trap and then you are locked in. That's my perspective on that.
All right, thank you. I think before I ask our guests to talk about it, before I ask Miss Oladimiji to talk about it, like you said, that people that are in love, they are always difficult to advise. I think when they list the people that you don't just advise anyhow. People in love, they come first.
Have you been in that situation?
No, I've not actually. Because I feel like I'm always logical to when it comes to relationship.
No,
So-
I feel in one point in time, especially when one is a teenager, there are some kind of ways you are being adamant when you're in love.
So when they tell you, oh no, don't, I don't think that guy is good for you, then he's a good guy. But yeah, like I said, Miss Oladimeji, can you tell us your perspective of that quote? A poison food does not taste bitter.
Okay, I would only be supporting what Pelisi said already. You already knew. But when you're eating a poison food, there are chances that it will taste funny. Even if it is a sweet meal, it will definitely taste funny. But because it is sweet, you'll be left confused, like, this thing tastes funny, but at the same time, it's very, very delicious. Like, you'll be confused at some point. So now, I would like to know to domestic violence by saying, who beats up a victim, then start apologizing and crying profusely, only to repeat the behavior again. You'll be left confused as a victim that, okay, this guy beat me yesterday and he's crying profusely this morning. He's caring. He's actually caring. Even if you're trying to talk the victim out of that marriage, they're like, my husband is caring. Nobody. Or do you think I'm the problem? As a victim, it's likely you'll be left confused by your abuser's action. You might question yourself somehow that, am I to be blamed? Is it my behavior, or is it because he's stressed or some other issues? So I would just like with what Pelumi already said, that even though it's going to be a sweet meal, the fact remains that food is poison.
Yeah.
Chances are high that it's going to taste poison, but you'll be left confused because of the sweetness.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so when you were talking, you talked about a situation whereby the victim feels like, oh, they're the problem. I think I would bring in the issue of gaslighting into that. I saw a movie whereby the lady she continuously got gaslighted, but then the guy doesn't beat her, he doesn't hit her, it's only gaslighting. But it got to a point that it was affecting her mental health. She almost felt at some point that she's going crazy. So now, last week you also said that if a guy yells at you, is abusing you.
Yes.
So I would want psychologically, right? So I would want to ask the guest, Pelumi and Miss Titilayo, what does domestic violence mean to you? Does it stop at a guy hitting you or shouting at you, or what do you think domestic violence is? We'll start with Miss Oladimeji.
Okay, domestic violence in me encompasses a range of abusive behaviors that extend far beyond just eating and verbal abuse, like you all said in the last podcast.
Okay.
It involves a pattern of behavior used by one person to gain or maintain power and control over another within a domestic or intimate relationship. So like you all said, these things are actually grouped. While physical violence and verbal abuse are common, there are things you could praise, probably physical injury or talking down. There are things you can actually measure. Physical violence and verbal abuse, they are the commonest. And they are often more visible forms of physical violence. But there are other ones like emotional and psychological abuse. So under here we have, it involves manipulation, intimidation, threat, gaslighting. That's where gaslighting comes in. And then other actions that undermine a person's sense of self-worth or self-esteem. Most times they include constant criticism, humiliation, isolation from friends and families, controlling what the victim can do or what they cannot do. This is emotional and psychological abuse. So even if you say, okay, this guy is not beating the lady, but he humiliates her, he gaslights her, manipulation, intimidation, threat. These are emotional and psychological abuse. Then we have economic and financial abuse. This involves controlling or restricting a person's financial resources. When you have to say how much she gets to spend in a day, how much she gets to spend to the mother, or is she allowed to send money to the parents, or is she allowed to help people, making them financially dependent on the abuser. You are not free. You are being abused. You can include preventing the victim from working, controlling their bank account, withholding money from them, or running up debt in their name. Like I have a client, the lady, an ex-banker. The guy forced her to resign from the bank so she could solely depend on him. And then at some point, the guy was accruing debt in her name, only to elope with another woman to the United States. Now my client had to start running from pillar to post to pay up monies he not spent, monies accrued by the ex-husband. So that is economic and financial abuse. Physical abuse is not involved there, but that's also domestic violence. Then there goes sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is any non-consensual sexual act or behavior. This includes rape, forced sexual acts, or demeaning sexual treatment. We all watch American movies where the lady is abused. She's forced to have some sexual activities that she did not consent to. So, the normal missionary, but you have to tie her or force her to spank you. You have to spank her. Those are sexual abuse. It's also a form of domestic violence. This also includes reproductive coercion, such as controlling a woman's reproductive choices. Then there's technological abuse. With the rise of digital communication, abusers may use technology to control, harass, or stalk their victims. There are some women that will have conversation with their friends. Harmless conversation, just the girl talk, and then the husband gets to hear everything because he has tracked her car, he has put some devices on her phone, so anybody that calls, even family issues, the lady's family issues, he gets to listen. At least even if you are married to somebody, there should be a certain level of privacy. It might not be that woman is in, but then there should be some level. Someone wants to listen to. Even when the woman is at the market doing market negotiation, he wants to know. And then the car is tracked, and then there are devices on the woman's phone to listen to every conversation. Monitoring someone's phone, social media, sending certain messages, using GPS, tracking their movement, technological abuse. It's also a form of domestic abuse. Then there's spiritual abuse. There goes stalking. When we talk domestic violence, people just think, oh, he's talking down on me or he's beating me every now and then. But there are other forms of domestic violence. Women and even men here are enjoying a lot of things. There are some men that cannot talk to their brother unless they get approval from the wife. I understand the fact that you need to have a conversation with your wife. Oh, darling, what do you think? In a place of love. Yeah. But when they come with manipulation, so there are different forms of sexual abuse, like you all said, like gaslighting. It's just that it's group. We have the financial abuse, we have the psychological abuse, we have the sexual abuse, technological abuse. But still, all forms are equally damaging.
Thank you very much for the information you just dished out right now. So, Palumi, can you briefly just tell us what you feel domestic violence is all about?
Well, I think she has touched the larger portion of what I wanted to say, but pretty much it's every act that is carried out in the home that affects the joy, the peace, the happiness of the other person. Everything that leaves the other person questioning his or her personality, self-worth, and mind is domestic violence. That's whatever everything she has said falls under this. Because a man who tortures, he said, I don't beat her, but you are beating her somehow. He says, I'm not beating her now. But you get home, you go to the room, you lock your door, he cooks for you, you don't eat it. You are trying to communicate. Someone said, that's how I was raised. You're communicating being unhappy by not eating a food. I haven't made it so well. There's nothing that you are ladies. I'm the only man here.
Yeah.
There's nothing that annoys a lady or
When
makes
you
her unhappy.
when you
After
go
cooking
deprive her from her food.
and you don't eat her
You
meal.
don't eat it.
And I even take it that I'm not eating. She would not be happy. So every act that is carried out in the home, and it also applies to the woman as well. A woman can say, I've seen some women do, they've starved their husband of sex. Some people do it to their kids.
We are
too.
coming there.
They're coming there to their kids. And whatever you do, a man does, a woman does in the home, that affects the joy, the peace, the happiness of the other person negatively in such a way that the person begins to question. From the point of view, people begin to question their identity and self-worth. There's violence there. That's it.
With what you just said now, it means that the moment you start questioning yourself, your self-worth, your self-esteem, it means that those are some of the early signs of domestic violence, right? But then I would like you to tell us a little bit of some things that people notice, like outsiders, when we notice it, like, oh, I feel like this person is being abused. Some people might not even know. When we're talking about the case of gaslighting, you don't even know. You start to question yourself. So what are the early signs that people see or the person involved would notice that would make them realize that, okay, I think at this point I am getting abused?
Well, early signs, it happens in the relationship. Usually when a person is in love, the person shows a lot of sweetness, a lot of kindness, a lot of this, a lot of that. And then if you ride on the spur of the moment, you will choose wrongly. How the person speaks over the phone. I'm telling you, there was a video I posted on my WhatsApp status by Pastor Podjo, and I think it's kind of true. He says the way a person kills mosquitoes sometimes can show you if the person will beat you. Person wants to kill cockroach, he carries his shoe, he says you must die, and kills the cockroach pitches out.
Open your eyes.
Open your eyes. So the point is there are signs.
Yeah.
If you don't listen between the lines, because, and again, as Christians, we are not just humans. We are able to discern into spirits. And this is not going spiritual on you. If you are able to listen. The thing is, there are 2 points. When you are too excited, you don't listen. When you're too sad, you don't listen. You need to be in the middle. Somebody who's excited will not listen to anything again. Anything, just ask me anything up to that for my kingdom. And then say, give me the head of your sister. Fine. So the point is, we need to listen. And so early signs is before you get into it, you know what you want and you go for it. Number 2, from the outsider's perspective, how do we know if I have a sister, for instance, that's been abused? Because I'm very observant. I listen with my ears, with my eyes.
Yeah.
Part of my body listen. So how do I know if my sister has been abused? Somebody who is normally happy is now sad. I visit her and then she's cold. From the day she stepped into that family, she's now she can't
so reserved.
She can't do so much again. Every little thing is afraid. My husband will. I don't understand what's happening here. So I can already tell. Sometimes it's not easy when you are meeting somebody for the very first time. But if you have known that person for a while and you now see the person in this home at this time, you can tell the difference. Let me give you an example and I stop on this. There's a woman who died some years ago, and in our compound then, every time her husband beats her every single day, the family will come and pack her things out. She will by herself take her things back there.
I think she's destined to die.
She will carry her things back. As in, this one happened before my eyes many times. The family will come and say, no, we are going. She will come back with the bandage, everything with blood. I say, I'm going, that's my husband. I say, So I know we're going to get there in a moment because there's a science around it. I'm going to explain that when we get there. Let me stop here.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, and on a quick one, we are still talking about domestic, and which implies that it happens in the home.
Yeah.
I made mention of one thing last week. I said, what in a case whereby a spouse, maybe your wife now, come to your office and just come and do some nuisance attitude and all of that, do you still call that domestic? Because to me, this word domestic, I think there should be other word tagged to it, to this violence. Do you still call that domestic?
Well, like I said, so usually every time I speak about anything, I talk about consequences. What's the consequence of the woman coming to the husband's office to shout at the husband and say, you are stupid, this one, that one. What that does, it affects the man's joy, peace, and happiness. So whatever is done that can affect me. So some men cannot even go home again. He finishes and he's like, I don't want to go home anymore. And he drinks, he goes to beer parlor, watch football till about 11 p.m., drives back home, enters his room, Oni, are you back? He's back. No peace, no joy. The woman, from the moment he steps in, the man starts shouting at him, you stupid man, you this, you that. The neighbors are hearing. Whatever happens, that the woman went to the man's office meant that the man would lose respect from the people. He can't be happy working there anymore. They know what is now happening. You know, it's easier when nobody knows what happened, but it's not easier when as the woman who actually went to her husband's office, and was saying, which of you ladies, a banker, recently, which of you ladies, which of you is my husband dating? Mention which are they? No, I'm not even abuse. So there are things like this. So whatever affects the joy, the peace, the happiness, so that the man begins to question if he made the wrong choice. Something is going wrong there.
All right. You said something now that the woman went to the office, shouting and all of that. But don't you think it might be the man's fault too? Okay, there might be some sign. You talked about discerning, when you have the spirit of discerning things. Now, she probably had seen something, and probably she might have actually talked to this man about it. Why don't you stop this? I noticed this. Why don't you put a stop to this? Probably this is just, creating a contest around it. Probably she really tried at home, like, okay, talking to the man. And this led her to go to the office to shout when I meet the person is dating. There are ways of doing it. There are some women that would invite the lady for a lunch date and, talk to her. Your relationship with my husband is already affecting my home. Please, can you leave him? But not every woman have that understanding. Some just feels like, let me go to the office, let me shout. Once I disgrace the woman, once I disgrace the man, they would probably both leave each other. Do you think this might actually be the man's fault too?
Well, so first of all, that's why when you are still single, God has so graciously given you an opportunity to choose right. And I believe our guests would also agree to this. When you are still single, it is God saying to you, sometimes people break out, some relationships break because the person who made you can see your future. And maybe your mom has been praying for you, God, please, I don't want my daughter to suffer what I suffered. So when a woman cannot trust her husband, then there is the issue of, first of all, so why did you marry somebody you don't trust? Because if you trust is from a track record of honesty. So trust is always built by track record. I can't marry a woman I can't trust. A woman should not marry a man she cannot trust. Now, when you now get married to a man you can't trust, or you did not do due diligence before you said yes to him, then going out to shout at him in public, and then maybe even some women go as much as pouring water. They will take water, go to his pour water, scatter his table, tear the documents. Now, she tore the document that he was supposed to sign that would give the family 100 million there. Now they have to now sleep face me and face you. The point is, that's not the response of a woman who is wise. The Bible says a wise woman. Now I'm going to quote the Bible because it's a book that has a lot in it. It says, I'm telling you, it says a wise woman builds her home. So if you see women in those days, women owned the home. As in, even when the man does not have a job and the woman is the one sponsoring, she will not tell. She will give the children money and say, Daddy said I should give to you. Women hold their home. So if your default to issues is to shout and then leave your confine, go to his workplace to hold him by his clothes and say, you must kill me today. You have not just, I don't see that relationship reconcile. It's hard. When even online, the social media is a public place. It's social gathering. You don't know. Social media is social gathering where every announcement you make is seen by the whole world. Even angels are on Facebook now. They will check it. So they will check it. They will screenshot it, send it around. Now, how do you delete a message that 1 million persons have screenshotted? So that's my input there.
All right, thank you. So this is to Ms. Titilayo. Why do domestic violence remain such a pervasive issue in the society? There are a lot of issues when it comes to domestic violence. There are a lot of people going through abuse as we're speaking presently. But the statistics sometimes does not even match up with the situations we see on our streets. Just in your neighborhood, you know that in this neighborhood, about 5 or 6 people are being abused. It might be the woman abusing the man. It might be talking about a woman abusing the man. When, like Grace said last week, when a woman sees a husband coming from work and she and everything, you're speaking bad words into the life of your man,
or even to the children. They will, go and give
exactly. So some women will talk to their children and say derogatory words to their kids, the children you gave birth to. But then I feel like this topic is a topic that people really do not talk about. It's become something that is an issue in the society that people really do not talk about. Miss Titilayo, can you tell us why domestic violence remains such a pervasive issue in the society?
Okay, so I'm going to use a lot of stones to kill just one bird.
Okay.
Like last week I was listening to the last podcast you guys had, and then someone said, someone started out by saying there's protest going on and people are angry, there is violence everywhere, that we should even say violence is violent, that maybe we should remove that domestic. I laugh. And now, so although it's difficult for me to share on a public line like this that I am a product of domestic violence, both from my parents and my previous relationship, when I say this, I mean that my father and mother cannot have a decent conversation. And the abuse was so severe, not just occasional. So it's a topic that is even personal to me. So when I say some things, understand it that it's coming from the standpoint of, I think I'll be 40 years. Another 1 year, I'll be 40. So I lost my mom earlier this year. So I would have a few references to my parents. Because why are we talking about domestic violence? Because we want to make an impact in the society so that people get to listen and learn, right? Okay, so now, the reason why domestic violence is more important, if you study the fact that when some people, some trolls, when they drop negative comments on people's social media accounts, and then some people want to reply them, they will usually say, "Guys, it's like you're not loved at home."
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys read things like that. You will see a very happy, you see a very happy video that people are and then there will be somebody from somewhere that will say, "Why is the man's trouser this big?" And then you'll be like, "They're only this one person," and then somebody will just drop the comment like, "You're not loved at home." See, domestic violence is more personal because home is supposed to be where we lay our head away from the craziness of the world. So domestic violence is differently from every kind of violence that you can think of. Domestic violence shapes what later becomes of you in future as a child. So when comparing every kind of violence in the world, the domestic one is differently because even if you get violence from outside, you should have a home where you can lay your head and get solace or you get comfort. Say for instance, your boss talks you down, and then your self-esteem is reduced in the process. That's violence. That's a form of violence, right?
Yes.
We all agree.
Yes.
Now, back home, mom and dad has a way of lifting you up so much that you would be fine. Do we agree?
Yeah, sure.
But in the situation whereby even that love is not coming from home, there is bad, there is bulls every other time.
Then who do you run to?
Where do you now run to? So as a child, even as the abuser, what you don't even realize is that abusers themselves don't have peace within themselves. They don't have peace. So people just think, okay, they're abusing the victim, they are fine, they enjoy it. Fine, I would say they enjoy, but as a person, they are not good people. They are not enjoying their heart, they are not enjoying their life because of that aggression. So it is differently. So now going back to your question, I would why is this prevalent, right?
Yes.
There are a lot of reasons why it's prevalent. First off, if there are 10 homes where either the man gets to abuse the woman or the woman gets to abuse the man, and then the 10 victims decide to dissociate from the abuser, it sends a signal to other abusers that, if I mistreat my wife, chances are that I'm going to lose her because she knows her right, she knows what she's supposed to do. And then if we have 10 abusers and then the entire 10 abusers are brought to book, punishment as a way of cautioning people, like those that goes to strip club, a stripper can, dangle everything in your face, but there's a rule. Do we not know the rule? You dare not touch. And if you want to touch, you seek consent, you seek permission that, okay, I like this person, I'm ready to offer this amount, can she go with me? Consent. If there are punishments attached to abusers, like, okay, victims know their rights. Okay, now some people say something. I talk about domestic violence a lot. Maybe that was why someone recommended it for this podcast. Like, I try to share my experiences, I try to lecture people, and really on a personal note, I've lost count of women that I help through the process of abuse with their spouse. Glory in that, and I'm so glad. It makes me happy. People will say, okay, the woman is not independent enough. She's not financially independent. That's why she's not able to leave the spouse. Have you heard of this saying that hell has no fury like a woman can't? If a victim decides to leave, regardless of her financial status, she will leave. I'm an example. I had my 30-year-old child with my ex, and then the pattern that happened with my parents reoccurred, like a pattern sort of. I saw it like, you mean I have all this with my parents, and now I'm not staying back. I'm not going to stay back and go through all what my mom went through with my dad. It can never be me. I left the first time. And when I left, guess what? I was unemployed. I didn't have a dime. But because I had the mindset that I am not going to make my child go through everything that I went through, and I'm not going to put myself in my mom's shoe and go through this stuff, I left no kobo to my account. And then when I left, guess what? My ex and the families were all like, oh, she's unemployed, don't worry, she's going to come back. Bills not your mate. Bills not your mate. And with all of that annoyance, I made it a point of duty that I am going out of this relationship. I am not going into another relationship. It's not also make I also. So I had I was working with annoyance in the bank. I think a few years after I got a job relationship outside. So people didn't understand. You can't drag that number one table with me. We have a table at the end of the month. Oh, these are the highest performing. My percentages were always 170%, 230%, 500%, 350%. Because I was working with all of the annoyance. I channeled my anger appropriately to my also.
Positive
That's why I was telling that absolutely like the man's phone. Like, oh, okay, I would rather face my also alone than stay in this abusive relationship. And he kind of used the bill that, oh, this was what I endured. No, I'm not thinking I'd have to leave. So this, okay, for someone like me now, my ex probably not try that kind of thing with another woman. 13 years down the line, I'm not going back. So if every victim are like me, chances are high that we are going to have a reduced figure, and the figures will keep reducing and reducing and reducing. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yeah, thank you very much for answering our question, and I would also say thank you for sharing your story. But one thing I would also thank you for is the fact that you made the decision to leave. Like I said last week, that some women just say that, oh, because of my child, I can't leave.
That's sufficient.
Because I want my child to know that you have to be in a man's house because of the normal societal norms, the things we see. When we're growing up, there was this thing like, oh, you have to be in your husband's house. But then having a child go through that hurt because you don't want people to say you left your husband. I said it last week that it's selfish of the woman. And that is why I'm thanking you again for making that decision 13 years ago because of your child, because that is the excuse they give. I can't live because of my child. So thank you once again for living because of your child. So now, okay.
That excuse was the same excuse my mom gave. Guess what? He had only me. I want to share it further because of somebody out there that is probably thinking the same way my dad had like mom kind of thought. My mom was like, okay, she had just me. She was an only child. We grew up alone, so she had just me. She didn't want to leave because she wants more siblings. So it won't just me. But guess what? Every pregnancy attempt was thwarted by physical abuse. There was a time she lost a 6-month pregnancy because of abuse. So at the end of the day, it's still just me. So if she had left earlier on, it would have been just me, and chances are that
other step siblings.
Sincerely, she could have gotten remarried and have more kids. Thank you very much, ma'am. Okay, so like I said last week, Pelumi, men get abused. Yes, like verbal abuse, even physical abuse. In a case whereby the woman feels like she can control the man, or in cases whereby the man is just too meek that he would not raise his hand. But then men also get abused. But due to stereotype, they don't talk about it because of their ego. They don't want to talk about it. And that is why we have low statistics. Now, putting aside societal norms, why do you think men do not speak up when it comes to domestic violence?
Well, a man who is being violated domestically is disappointed that he made the wrong choice. So when a man feels that so men know easily when they have made the wrong choice. I watched a podcast about 3 or 1 month ago where somebody was speaking to the fact that when he got married to his wife at first, one day he called her and then asked her, I hope I've not made the wrong choice. That was 3 months into marriage.
Wow.
She was dealing with his emotion. The lady said when he said that to her, she went to her room and cried that, wow, I'm making a good man feel stupid as though he made the wrong choice. So men, because of our ego, we don't easily make the move to excuse a woman. And it doesn't mean that the man does not know that he has made the wrong choice. That's number one. But two, men don't speak up because they think they can take charge. So a man is supposed to be the one who doesn't complain too much.
Yeah.
A woman can call, mommy, come and speak to your son. He's doing this. But a man does not feel that he has to reach out to say, I need help here. And then again, because men are easily isolated. A man goes to work very early in the morning, comes back to the home, late in the night, and then may not even have so much friends to gist with, and his other friends. And usually, when a man is pressed to the wall, like this is powerful. When a man is pressed to the wall, he would seek advice from friends who will counsel him to engage violence. And then when he now gets home and he gets to the point where he's pushed beyond the line, tends to hit back. The idea of violence comes in when there is, I say it every time, the relationship is about deposit and withdrawal. When you withdraw more than you have deposited, you are stressing the relationship, and there is going to be an issue somewhere along the line. So men feel they can control the situation. And then when they feel they cannot control the situation, they begin to have affairs. And so a man who has stopped asking you for something, correcting you about something, a man who has stopped talking about what he used to talk about before, because concern brings about attention. When a person is concerned about what you are doing, concerned about you, it will call your attention to things. When he stops calling your attention, as women know when they are crossing the line, you know this thing. You know you are dealing with you.
Like, how do you know?
Women knows.
We
know.
I thought you said you. Do you know? Are you married? Because
I'm not married. I'm not married. But even in relationship, women know when they're already doing too much. You know
when you are
but
dealing with
you
him.
just feel like, let me test his
Let
patience.
me test. When you want to test his
You know that
patience.
there are people that don't have conscience. Like, it's not there.
That's true. That's another perspective.
So that's a big issue that's a podcast topic. Right? So a woman knows when she's testing them. She knows. And when you push the man to the limit, just like expanding, you cannot make use of a rubber band if you don't expand it a little. So there has to be that stretching. So you have to be better here. You don't dress as much as you want to dress. But when you start talking down on him, talking down on his finance, beating him emotionally, making him look stupid of himself, you may not beat him, but you are beating him somehow. Now, when it gets to that point, you are pushing him. You are expanding the rubber band, but remember that you can only expand a rubber band so far. After a while, it will become useless. So let me stop at that.
All right, thank you.
You have stated it. That was delightful. Now, when you are, as a man, when you are domestically violated, what do you do? How do you curb the problem? Who then do you now run to? Why I'm asking this? When you go to, there are cases where you go to police station. Police officers will tell you, this is family issue. Please go home and settle it. When you go to your pastor, maybe any religion you are, maybe your religion priest, either you are a Muslim, you are a Christian. Okay, in Christianity, they will tell you God does not support devils. When you now go to your family, who are part of the stakeholder of the marriage, that gave that consent, they will tell you, in our lineage, we don't divorce. If it is a woman, you can't run from the marriage. There's no, but they will tell you history. Nobody has ever left marriage and all of that. Then, if the law agency have failed you, your family have failed you, your religion priests or leaders have failed you, then who do you now run to?
First, you run to the owner of the universe. but on a very serious note, so I would start again by saying a poisoned food never tastes bitter. If you're listening to this and you're not in a relationship yet or you're not married, this is a very important message you need to listen to. Be attentive to things. Pay attention. But if you are now in it, the only thing we can recommend to you, first of all, is you want to have a conversation. We avoid tough conversations. As humans, we don't like to confront things head on. We think about consequences like onion. We keep unraveling and unraveling. We don't see things for what they are. There are times when you have to be diplomatic, but there are times when you have to be upfront and say, this is not bringing me joy and peace. Somebody who is single, ask questions. How will you react? He can tell you what you want to hear, but you have to pay attention. But now you are now in it and you didn't see, because you are now in it and maybe you did not know about this before. You want to, first of all, have conversation. But two, you want to go through what I call detox. I was early this morning, I saw a video of Deyemi Okonlawon, who about how he became an actor. And he was saying in that interview that every time he played a role, he had to go to a therapist to have detox, because sometimes he plays the role of a womanizer, plays the role of area boy gangs, and then he has a wife, he has a daughter. He can't go home and begin to act like he used to act and manifest such. So he said he has to go through detox. For 1 week, he can stay in his room and just detox himself of all the things he had said there and done, and tell his children, that's not me, that's not your father, I did it for money, actually, that is only right? So the point is, first, you need to have tough conversation where you ask yourself what is happening. I wrote about 2 articles on gaslighting, and something I said there is clear about what is happening. And then it gets to the point where after you have sought for counsel, separation is not a hard thing to do in terms when you have gotten to that point where life has pushed you hard. So it becomes, you want to separate from somebody who wants to kill you. When it gets to the point where it's beginning to affect your joy. Now, there is something about being happy that cannot be placed side by side with anything. When it begins to affect your peace of mind, your joy,
you need no one opinion.
You know that I will die here. There are men who leave their homes for 1 month to go stay in the hotel just so that they're able to gather their thoughts again. So the point is, when it gets to the point where your joy is being drained, you are feeling so unhappy, what you can do first, like I said, is before it gets to that point, have conversation. Number 2, have a system that detoxes you. Number 3 is when it gets to the point where your peace is being tampered with, your joy is going down so fast. You want to first of all separate. That is powerful. Separate. Before, even while you are processing the divorce, separate first. Have you noticed that people who eventually divorce, first of all, they don't stay under the same roof. You just see the woman knock on the gate one day and come in and say, take a letter, sign the letter, I want to leave. So the first thing, after you have done all, because that's not the first response to being unhappy in something. So that's my point.
All right. Can we through that question? Where do we run to?
Okay. Yeah, I feel like our listener too should also comment on that. Where can the man run to? Where can the woman run to in situations whereby the people around you makes it look as though you have to remain there? You have to always give him the support. You can't leave because of, our societal values and everything, African orientation. So there are situations like that. I'm urging our listener to comment and tell us their own perspective in regards to that. So now, in a situation whereby a child grew up in a home whereby had to see the parents get abused, they violated themselves. Now this child grows up. Some grow up to become so isolated from every other person. Definitely. They don't have this social thing in them. They just want to be on their own. And then some grows up to believe in their mind and in their heart, this is how it's supposed to be. So Oladimeji, you're the one in the best position to tell us more about this, owing to the fact that you have an NGO and also you've experienced this. What are the short-term and long-term effects of domestic violence on the victim, especially or on their mental well-being?
Okay. First of all, I just discovered that the last question you had under the guise of me sharing my story, I didn't really answer it. So I'm going to brush over it very quickly. Okay. Now, why do domestic violence remain such a pervasive issue in the society? Very quickly, because of cultural norms and attitudes which you all discussed. But the reason why I want to talk about it is because it's not just about mentioning the problem. What are the mitigations to it? Cultural norms and attitudes says, okay, we have deep-rooted belief that there is gender inequality that normalizes violence, that your husband is your husband. So first off, it stems on like my daughter. I try to think this in my head. The speech I'm going to give when my daughter is getting married. It's one of the synonymous to the speech one man gave one time that ruled the internet space one time. The bride's father telling the groom that, see, I'm giving you my daughter out. I'm giving her my daughter out in marriage. But guess what? Our room is still in my house, unoccupied by anyone. Selling her. I don't know if you guys saw the video. And I already has it at the back of the mind that you can't mess with this lady. She has a solid support system. And then I would say, on a lighter note, I would say congratulations to everybody that have made their life as either a friend or a neighbor or a colleague, because I know what I've been doing when it comes to domestic violence, especially when it comes to that sexual and mental attitude. I've seen a lady, my childhood friend, a guy, the wife just called me. She was crying. And she was like, Auntie Titi, I can't believe, because she's quite younger, I can't believe that with what you say on the internet, your best friend actually battered me. I say, this is personal, because accusing me, somehow, I'm also affected, right? Yeah. I went there. I told my childhood friend that I will give him 24 hours to allow the baby to go and beg her. I'm not his parenting. I'm just a friend. So I told him that, see, your wife called me and said so and so. And what pained me more was that, I will go to the internet space and be making out. Meanwhile, my childhood friend is doing what I'm preaching. So you will not pain me. You either lose me as a friend, and that's going to be total. And they know when I say that. And apart from losing me as a friend, I'm not feeding you, might not feel the pain, but I'm going to say it as part of as a blood story, and I will mention you. I will call you out, and your wife is ready to say that she said so. And as I speak with you, the incident happened 5 years ago, and later the guy now came to me was like he was frustrated. He now had to narrate all what he was going through in his job. So consider the fact that the lady called me and then I went like, he's your husband though, you need to stay back. So that's discouragement number one. So the cultural norms and attitude is every one of us should be similarly reorientated that domestic violence is wrong. That's the mitigation. Then there's lack of awareness and education. If this lady was, I've not listened to some of my blog posts or some of my speeches, things I've talked about. She knows this is wrong, so she's not ready to accept it. It happened just once in their marriage. The guy knew what we did to him, and then it never happened again. We were gisting recently, and I was like, see, I'd rather die than lay hands on my wife. At least we achieved one, right? Yeah. Then there's economic dependence. Because the wife does not work, that's the major one we all talk about. I'm sorry I'm taking you guys' time, because I just remember that I didn't talk about. Okay, so the economic dependence is, okay, the wife cannot stand alone. My dear, you can stand alone. Leave that place first. Leave first. That's adding that hell had no free like a woman's con. Like, it's real. Like, I'm a witness to it. And there's social isolation. Someone like me, somebody will look at me and say, you know all what they talk about single moms, but I'd rather become a single mom that is alive, healthy, and very okay than be there for my daughter. There's this social isolation that don't know that woman is divorced. Don't come near my husband, though. That one is real. I think we should even be talking so much about that because I know what people say. I've had to cut off a lot of families because of what they said about me or even my mom at some point. The social isolation is the major reason why women are not living that abusive relationship. They rather die and be buried as a missus. So I think emphasis, we should lay more emphasis on the social isolation than our wacky legal and systemic challenges and so on. So now to your question.
Yeah.
The short-term and long-term effect. Yes. You know, in the books, they will say the short-term acute stress and anxiety, depression, PTSD, self-esteem issues, difficulty in concentration, guilt and shame. They are real. So the short-term effect. But, you know, after you've even some of the courage to leave, something will happen. Some things as little as you want to change your own job, normal jobs that a man would do, and you'll be like, if only you was there, and I should have stayed back. You see that if I stayed back, or an apprentice, this electrician comes over and then he knows that okay, there's just a lady in this house, there's no man of the house, and he's trying to prove funny. So I've learned to be a tough person because of the situation. But then, how many women can do that if we don't encourage them?
Thank you very much.
The short-term effect of I'm going somewhere. The short-term of kids, those are the short-term effects. And then the long-term effect, the long-term effect are chronic mental health conditions, long-term trauma, relationship difficulties. Now, I'll just end this with a story from my mom. I succeeded, there's a part I didn't say, I succeeded in taking my mom out 10 years ago. I separated my parents. No, I was old enough. I had my daughter then. I just took my mom out like this. Like, okay, families have spoken. A lot of people have said, you are not leaving me. I have the money now. I have the means. I am taking you out of this marriage. So I took her out 10 years ago. But guess what? Mom fell in serious illness 6 years ago, depression, and she died March this year. So now, in the process of putting her helter-skelter, the medics told us that they were the aftermath of constant eating. I don't know if you get me. So my take-home long-term and short-term effect is that forget the books, forget all those PTSD, forget all those drama. As a victim of domestic violence, I usually end in one thing. You either end up dead or you become a murderer under the guise of self-defense. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So, Palumi, can you tell us why do victims find it hard to leave their abusers? Like you said earlier, the man keeps beating you. The family members even comes in to pack your things and tell you like you have to leave. But this woman would still pack her things back. Yeah, she would still pack her things up because I can't leave my husband. And then for people that even understand that, okay, this man is abusing me and I want to leave, most times the abuser do not even want them to leave. So this is like asking him two questions. Why do you think that the victims find it hard to leave their abusers? And for situations whereby they understand that they're getting abused and they want to leave, how can they leave their abusers without any issues?
Okay, well, thank you for that question. In 1973, in the month of August, that happened around this time in 1973, 4 bank employees were locked up, held hostage in a bank in Sweden. And in Sweden, around Stockholm, there's something called Stockholm syndrome. Now, these guys were locked up in that vault for 6 days. After that time, the robbers were arrested and kept in prison. It so happened that the people held hostage, the bank employees that were held hostage, went to the police station with cardboard and started asking that the police should release their abusers. That there can come a time when the abused becomes so attached to the abuser that it becomes difficult for the abuser, for the abuse to leave. It's called Stockholm syndrome. And so when you see people like that, what you need to do, like I've said again, is to detox. Now, it could take 4 months. It could take 1 year to erase an experience. I remember that the way we work is we see our imaginations. We see our imaginations again and again. And so until you get to that point, if somebody gets to the point where the person needs help, somebody who is beginning to sympathize with his or her abuser, trying to say, see, I know what he's doing, try to give excuses. The person's esteem has been battered. The person's esteem has been crushed. The person does not have a sense of self-worth again. So that's why people stay with their abusers. They believe they have nobody to run to. And when somebody believes that the person doesn't have anybody to run to, and the way manipulation works is that this is very powerful. Now, there's something called ghosting, like you know already. Yeah. Something called gaslighting, like you know already. And that before, if somebody who is an expert in gaslighting, somebody who is an expert in manipulating, will isolate you first from the people that can help you. And so it's the idea that the lion uses in the jungle. When a lion wants to kill a particular animal, the lion will wait till that animal is isolated. And when somebody says, I'm an introvert, I like to be by myself, you are positioning yourself as somebody who will be dealt with. It's my husband and I. You will still be beaten. This way, the way you are doing, we have seen your kind before. We have read the script. We know the end. When you are dealt with, you run back to your abuser. That's why a lady will go back to a guy in a relationship that is dealing with her. It takes a lot of detoxing for her to pull out of that. So that's the reason people go back to their abusers again and again. Now, how does the person who has been through that get out of it? It's quite difficult to do it alone if you don't track it on time.
Okay.
And sometimes people need to be pushed to the wall to know their abilities. There's the fear of what will now happen now. Where will help come from? Okay, now I'm out now. Somebody who is sacked on a place of work. I say, what next now? There are no jobs in Nigeria. What will I now do? Or usually find out. The people who leave, who were sacked, who gave their very best and were sacked and were told to leave, usually they can be afraid for a while, but they always become fine afterwards. Yeah. So the fear that when I leave, nothing good will come out is a fear that exists for all men, but some people have mastered the act of life, that for as long as you can use your hand to work, you won't beg for bread. So if somebody who is listening to this right now and is being domestically violated, and you have tried everything possible, and it feels as though your abuser is becoming more powerful because people will test your limits.
Yeah, sure.
We live in the world of they will test your limit. Then you turn your back and say, if you do it again, you will see my red eye. That's the last time the person will try that to that extent anymore. Mm-hmm. So you need to know when to draw the line. Now, when the person has crossed the line repeatedly, make it a point of duty to be bold enough to leave. And if it's a relationship, you are ending that relationship almost now. Because usually, guess what happens? When your abuser realizes that without them, you're powerful, they return. And that's check it. No, this is, you go and do research.
Yeah. That's what I'm asking. Like in a case whereby the abuser does not want the person to leave. Okay, so how can they live without any issue?
Okay, pretty much the abuse usually is not confident to walk up to the person who is abusing him or to say, this is what I want. And usually abusers are afraid. I tell you for free, my dear, they are afraid. They are afraid that you will walk away. They are afraid that if you walk, the day you turn your back on them, they are afraid. And so when you are able to, first of all, confront, don't run. You are running. That's why they are coming after you. Okay. If you stand, I won't live here. Do what you can do. Have you seen a boy who is so short and is fighting a boy? Maybe a taller guy has been bullying him and he says, okay, I'm not running again. I will stand here today.
Oh, yeah, let's
do it. He will beat him. He will still come towards you. That's how to fight. You fight it. So when it gets to the point where your life is being threatened, you don't run, you stand. The fact that you're running means you are still afraid of your abuser. Stand and face the person. I will not run, do your worst. And the person feels this one doesn't care to die at all. So that's the point where people get to. Again, if you become so much of that your life is being threatened, the law is always ready to help you out there. Get the police involved. Get them involved. Get your family members involved. Let them gather around. Let them support you. Get lawyers. Because when they think that they brought you from the village to Lagos to deal with you, nobody in your family can actually help you out, get a lawyer. Social media is now a place where you can get help without even asking for it.
Use your rag to oppress them too.
I'm telling you, call them out. Tag them. Tag them. I bet it with you. You know, let me give you this last one. So the thing about NSAS that happened, remember, was that there was somebody recording the police dealing with somebody, violating somebody on the road. In social media now is not very powerful. Even police now are not very careful. If you want to arrest anybody, check camera there, because they know that you by just having your video online, they're in trouble. So I think one of the most powerful ways of living a violent relationship is having done all to stand, you leave. And when you leave confidently with your shoulders raised. Sometimes it's to leave. Sometimes you can leave and return and then break it. Sometimes you can leave because you need to gain confidence of people who love you and say we love you. You are not as stupid as you think you are. So let me stop at that.
All right, thank you very much. So I'm going to be putting it out to Miss Oladimiji. I think Kwalumi said something about we have law. So Ma, can you tell us, is there any law in Nigeria that addresses domestic violence, and how do you think victims of domestic violence can get support? And you can just wrap it up with your advice to the people that are in abusive relationship.
Okay, yes, Nigeria has legal provisions addressing domestic violence. So here are key aspects of the legal framework and available support for victims. There is the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, the VAPP Act, was enacted in 2015. The VAPP Act is a comprehensive law aimed at addressing various forms of violence, including domestic violence. It provides protection against physical, sexual, and psychological violence. And then the key provisions, the Act defines various forms of violence. It mandates protective measures for victims. It also establishes penalties for perpetrators. Unfortunately, we don't know. So it also provides for the establishment of a shelter for victims and counseling services. Therefore, the Child Rights Act law, it was enacted in 2003. This act provides protection for children from abuse, including domestic violence. So it is not just the partner now, but even there is a provision for the children from domestic violence. Yes. So, and then the Penal Code and Criminal Code overview says these codes contain provisions related to assault and battery, which can be applied to cases of domestic violence. However, they are less comprehensive compared to the VAPP Act. So now there are different organizations that will take it up like you are their family, more than your family. So if you're not getting the support of your family and your families want you to die in the house of the man that is battering you, you can also just approach. We have an organization, but most bigger organizations like the National Human Rights Commission, we don't use that NHRC enough. And then there are various NGOs that will provide immediate assistance and support like ours. But just that we're quite young and there might be limit to what we can do in terms of shelter and all. But as much as we are aware, we will see it to its logical end. It requires us to walk up to NHRC and stuff. So, and then there are many organizations, NGOs that will also provide shelter. The shelter offers safe space for victims to escape violence and access support services. So organizations like Domestic and Sexual Violence Response Team, the DSVRT, will do that.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. So please, can you give the people in abusive relationships that are out there, can you give them a brief advice, just something short?
The thing is, the first thing is, if he has done it once, if he or she now, as the case may be, so we don't offend our male gender, because somebody actually dropped a funny comment on my page that, okay, I'm not going to be biased to the podcast and all. So if he or she has done it once and you don't make it look like a grave offense, be sure that you are going to have to enjoy it as long as you live. There was a case of somebody that reached out, the husband slapped her. An average Yoruba person, or let me say an average African mentality will say, she didn't just slap. No, not from slap. Not from clap. Dance they start. When you start clapping, you're ready to dance. So at the first instance, shouting down on, gaslighting, as soon as you identify it, pick it out. When you pick it up, you know that, okay, I don't know, some people will do some NGO activities like myself will say, no, I'm talking it wrong. Why would you do after beating me once? Why am I still staying in the relationship? Okay, let's just assume I want to be African in that regard. Okay, as long you only just slap, you don't say just. Take it up seriously, and chances are that it will never happen again. So if you should enjoy it, I'm sure that you're going to enjoy it. So it's tactical about some instances you can't just exit. Like Pelumi said, that you're not, if you are running, they will chase you. So it's not the act of you running. Just be strategic about it. Reach out. Most importantly, you might not be able to do this alone, but reach out to it. And in our NGO, we have a community. So you listen to, oh, this was how this person exited, this will help this person go. There is power in community.
Okay, so I would also like to put it out here. If you're a person that's a victim of abuse, come to meet and, open up to telling you, like, oh, I'm getting abused, this is going on in my relationship. These are the things you can do to help them. Please make out time to listen to them. Initiate a conversation. Once you start, maybe the person did not even walk up to you. Probably you just sense it. Initiate a conversation with them and also listen without judging them. It would go a long way. When people know that you're judging them, they tend not to open up.
When you start telling, didn't you see it before?
They tend not to open up. So please be human enough to listen without judging. Even the Bible says, do not judge. Not. So please listen without judging. And also, if you want to reach out to any NGO in order to discuss your situation, City organization is here to listen to you. And I would like to thank my guest for joining us on the program. Miss Oladimeji Tisilayo, thank you very much for joining us on the show this afternoon.
Thank you.
Oluwapalumi Awe, thank you so much for joining us on the show this afternoon.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I would like to do a shout out to my Vibe Queen, Grace. Thank you for joining me.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. Paul, our producer, thank you for joining us on today's episode. And yeah, let me do a shout out to Adebayo Olaiton. She's been in the studio with us all through the program. Thank you for joining us. And that will be all on today's episode. Until next time, do have a great day. Peace.